Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. I guess you can all hear me. As promised, this is the Supplemental Lab for week number 4. And as just a quick review, I want to make sure that you understand about what you'll be uploading. I'm going to click on syllabus. And I covered this Monday night, but there were some of you who did not attend. So you'll need to know what's going on. There are 3 files that are due on Thursday, the 6th of July. Okay. The first one is, each of these are uploads. And I have 3 files that I want you to upload, okay, for July 6th. I'll go back into files here. I'm over here in Canvas. And I hope all of you are having a wonderful day. This is Thursday morning, what is today's date? The 29th of June. Of course, in later times, I'll reuse this learning object, this video, so it may or may probably won't be June 29th. It'll be some other time. But this is the Supplemental Lab for week 4. And I'm going to click on Files. And there are 3 files that you're going to be uploading. First of all, let's come down to, we're working on that case, the elusive moose. And the first is this file called Moose Extended. It's called Moose Extended. That's one of the 3 files that you'll upload. Okay. And that's the one that had some, we did some conditional formatting and some data analysis, and I talked about that on Monday night. And then I'll find the other file here, and here's a zip file that has the elusive moose. And that has this, and the zip file has 2 files. One of them is a database, okay, and the other is just a skeleton Excel file. So I'm going to download the elusive moose. You know, of course, you'll want to put these on your desktop. I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to diminish my screen here for just a moment. And I'm going to take Elusive Moose, the solution, Moose, the solution, the 1, and then Moose 4. Make sure those are on my desktop. There's Moose 4 right on top of Cardinal Putty. And Moose Solution right there. So see, he's framed. Isn't that beautiful? There is Cardinal Buddy cavorting up there in Jackson Hole, Wyoming at the Grand Tetons. Magnificent place. And I had mentioned a 3rd file that that you'll be uploading that is connected to Elusive Moose. And go back up here. That's the file called Moose 4 Extended. I'm going to download it. And I'll enable the editing. I'll click Save As. And I'm going to put it on my desktop. And then I'll close it. Then we'll look at each of them again. Now I'm going to diminish the browser over here. And before I do, though, I want to make sure you don't forget. And by the way, I've been taking a look at what's going on in the discussion boards in terms of your work with the group software project. You're making some progress. Keep going. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you'll have to say. And We'll also click over here in the announcements, and you have a link. Well, I didn't record the classroom session from Monday night, which is but here's the supplemental lecture link. And then there's also a link that takes you out to, I did a search on database technology over at TED. And there's some fantastic applications. I hope you'll go over there and just take a look at the titles of some of them and see the kinds of things that are being done. Okay? Because we can use databases for some really, really important work. Near and dear to my heart is the database that's over at the Baptist General Convention, their disaster recovery. I have a working knowledge of how they put that thing together. It's fantastic. There's also a couple of other databases out there that deal with the location of landmines. Most people don't know this, but every year, thousands of people, usually children, die. If I'm not mistaken, tens of thousands of people are wounded from mines that have been placed all over the world in areas of conflict, and that's something that's just a terrible, terrible thing. So anyway, I wanted to alert you to these, the supplemental lecture and the TED Talk, and this link over to TED Talks. Well, so far so good. Now I'm going to diminish my browser, go to my desktop, and as you can see, I've got the three files here. I'm going to go again. These are the three files you will upload. They are Moose IS Solution 4, the one, Moose 4 Extended, and then just Moose 4. Just quickly, a quick review of them. Open this up. This is the skeleton file, as I mentioned Monday night, that has the dimensions. We talked about this, the notion of a database as part of a data warehouse, and every database has four things. They have a table where we store data. They have a query engine, a way that I get data out of the table, and they have a report function. That is, how to take the results and report them and present them. And then a fourth thing called a form, and that form is how we populate a table rather than just sitting and typing stuff in. Now, also talked about the concept of dimensions and the data warehousing concepts of dimensions versus fact tables. Here is a fact table, if you will. Pardon me. This is a dimension table. It's kind of a combination of both, but notice this has everything about customers. When a database is what we call normalized, and I have a link in there, a link in the Canvas room to about COD's five steps of normalization. You have tables that relate only to a particular dimension. And then we link those tables using a primary key and a foreign key to go ahead and link the tables and then be able to harvest data from more than one table. I talked about this Monday night in the class session. Now here is what we call a dimension table or an attribute table. This is a slowly changing dimension table because we're probably not going to add that many types of stations. Here is another. These are specific stations. Notice that there are three types of Denali's. Okay, and then the three types of the RV stations, and then the WW stands for forest. And again, this is a dimension table, if you will. And then here we see a fact table, which has all the reservations that have occurred. Now I'm going to close this file, and we're going to take a look at Moose 4 Extended because in Moose 4 Extended, what I did was I took those tables and I did some work. And here's a tab where I take the customer, the check-in date, the checkout date, the station requested, the station assigned. I computed the number of days, okay, for each reservation, the amount due, and was the station request type request met, yes or no, and then I used here thermal additional formatting, as we talked about, to get some type of sense of how these felt, which one had the lowest, which one had the largest. Then on whether or not the station type request was made, it's important because people come to this RV park and they want a particular type of station. So we want to find out, do we have any situations when people did not get what they wanted, and we highlight those in red. And then we find out, and then of course that gives us the information. I did some statistical work up here, the average refund, the average number of days stayed. Then I did what's called a revenue mismatch. Remember, this whole thing, IT is intended to take data and create information, which is actionable data, okay? And so here's an example. We took the day stayed, the customer, what they expected to pay. This is based on the fact that they had expected to pay $200. This is a customer number 3, okay? But they actually spent $240 because they didn't get the type of a station that they wanted. They had to go to a more expensive station. So the action was to send them a gift card and a VIP reservation, okay? Now, here's customer number 1, customer number 4, who stayed 1 day. They expected to spend $55. Actually, they spent $40. But I went ahead and even though they saved $15, I sent them a VIP reservation because, you know, they might not come back. They might say, well, I couldn't get the station I wanted, so I give them a VIP reservation. Then finally, here's customer 18, who is a very loyal customer because they didn't get, as you see down here, they didn't get the type of RV site that they wanted, and you know, so but they stayed with us 17 days. Look at that, they spent $119 more than they planned to spend. And that's a chunk of money. So I sent them a gift card and a VIP reservation, and I would probably want to follow that up with a personal call. And look, this is a good example of what I would call a static dashboard. Okay, and this could be updated and linked to another sheet, or updated or populated and updated through a database. But I just wanted to show you this so that we see how we've taken these data and we've worked with them. We've added some visual acuity here, some visualization. And then provided, of course, information here about the station IDs, the count, the type, etc., so we can put all that into perspective. So this is, we talked about this. If you want to see how it's put together, it's simple. Just click up there in the cell. It's going to show you. Of course, you can see we use some conditional formatting there. So no big deal. So we're going to close off Moose 4 Extended. And now we're ready to do some more analysis, okay? And we're going to open up Moose Solution. And we'll enable the content, okay? And just again, to walk us through here we have the 4 elements that you'll find in any data, and they're called objects. Tables, where I store the data. Queries, that's how I get data from the tables. forms, and then reports. Okay, and those are the 4 basic elements in every single database. Now, again, it's important to understand that when we use this data warehouse concept, when we apply it at the level of a database, we have specialized tables. Those are called dimension tables. And then we have fact tables. Now, I want to show you here some of those. Here is a dimension table. And remember, we talked about the fact that I can look at the tables in from a couple of layers or views. I can look at it from the data sheet view. I can look at it from the design view. The design view is where I do the work to build the table, to name the fields, to define the type of data that they have, and to provide some description. Down below here are the general properties. Okay. I think we even made a table. We'll hear in a second. There's another. This is a fact table because this has transactions. And you'll notice their data, the data here are from customer IDs, customer data, stations. That's why it's called a fact table. And here's the table station. We can open and then go down to design view. Same story here. The way to think of it is like this. If you think about Excel for a moment, Excel has the formula bar where you put an equation or a conditional statement or something like that, and then it has a display area. And of course, that would be like cell G56 or something like that. The same principle holds here. We have a data sheet view or a results set view, okay? And then we have a design view, which is kind of like the formula. So when we create tables, we can do that. Now, we're going to create a very simple table real quickly here. I'm going to close this off for a minute. And I'm in Excel, pardon me, Access. I'm going to click Database Tools. Pardon me, I'm going to click Create. And you'll see I can go to Table Design or Table. I'm going to go to Table Design. And I'm going to put a field name in. And I'm going to call this question ID. This may sound like I'm going to call this question number. And I'll make that an auto number, which means that each new question that I create, and if you say this sounds a little bit like that software development project you've got, group software thing, yes it is. I'm just showing you real quickly here. Here's a question number, it's an auto number. Okay, and then I would have a chapter. Pardon me, I'd have the question itself. And then I'd have correct answer. And chapter. Page, or I'm going to call it correct answer page. That is, what page will I find the correct answer? Now, Here, I'm going to have some choices. The chapter. I don't know that I would make that a number, but or the correct answer. It should be correct answer page. And you can use them as text, or you could use them as numbers. I would probably go ahead and I would make this a number. Okay. And if you look down here in the field properties area, okay, you'll see that I have, that I have the things like the size of the field, the format, the decimal places, validation rule, is it required? And for example, on the question number, click there on index. Is it required? And I would say yes. No duplicates. Every question should be unique, just like every record is unique. And then I have my table. So I have my question number, question, correct answer, chapter, and then correct answer page. I don't know if I had asked you to do a level of difficulty or something like that or not. You could, of course, add that in, and you could put like level of difficulty as a field. And I'd leave that as text. I'd go, let's say you put something like 5 really difficult, 1 really easy. And so I'll put it in as a number, because I may want to do something superficial like, I'm going to do something like compute the average or whatever. Now I'm going to go up to the data sheet view. And it says you must first save the table. Well, I'm going to save the table. I'm going to call it funny. P-H-U-N-Y. There's no primary key defined. Oops. I need to define a primary key. And so I'm going to click right here on question number there. Then right click and I can add the primary key that way, or I can go up here, make it a primary key. And you'll see there's the key and it's hot showing that I have this primary key. So I'm going to save this table. Now I can save it as funny. And there's my table funny. Now I'm going to close this off for a second. And I'm going to rename this and make sure that it follows the naming convention so that there's no question. I'm going to call this TVL funny. Okay? Now, in the real world, there will be those who would say table customer is fine, table reservation is not so fine, because that's really a fact table. Okay? And so there would be who would rename this FACT reservation, fact reservation. So we know it's a fact table. All right? That would be up to your choice. But when you see anything that has a transaction, that's typically what you're going to see in a fact table. Now, we're going to do something here and look now at the structure of this database. And we did this something the other night. So I'm going to click up here on Database Tools. Okay. Now let's do this first of all. I've got this table funny, and I'm going to click Database Tools, and then I'm going to click Relationships. Okay. Well, now before I click that, I want to show you a couple of other things. There's a thing called the Database Documenter, which will give you a report of every single object in this table. in this data in this database, the types of data used to create objects, etc. So dependencies, the whole bit. And we'll click on this for a minute, just see. And that will show you, you want to check, what do you want to see? What do you want to find out about? And you can click check them all or some of them. There's also a thing over here called object dependencies. We talked about this in the class session, but click on this very first query called Query Average Stay Information Specification Question 2. Then click on Object Dependencies, and you're going to see a little pop-up menu that talks about objects that depend on me and objects that I depend upon. Now, obviously, there are no objects in this database, but this shows you the flow, or the entity relationships would be the more formal title. But then objects that I depend on, I can see that this is pulled from the reservation table. Okay. Now we're going to click on relationships up here. And we have these tables that are all related. Now, manipulate these around a little bit, like we did in class the other night. And again, here's the reservation table. And this utilizes what we call the star schema. The star schema is probably the most prevalent. And the star schema simply has a series of 2 or more dimension tables that feed into a fact table. Okay, and that's why I said before, this table reservation, I might rename it to call it fact. Okay, but if I do, then I may have to go in and rework all my queries, so I'm not going to do that. But this is a fact table. Anytime I see anything that implies a transaction, that's what I've got. Now, you can see these are all related here. And got to take this one. Hang on a minute. Hello?
I left my phone.
Okay. Well, I'm making a recording. So, you want me to bring it up to you?
No, I just want you to know that I knew it was there.
Okay, sweetheart. I love you. I will talk to you later then.
Okay, I won't tell you anymore until you call me back until you're done recording.
All right. Bye-bye.
I love you. Bye-bye.
Okay, that was my wife. You got to hear her beautiful voice. And she left her phone at home. So she's barely a human being. We all feel a little inadequate without our phones on us, don't we? How those things, I'm surprised they haven't, well, they're going to implant them in us. People got those watches and all that stuff. Anyway, we've got these tables, and you say, well, the funny table, where's it at? I'll click on show table, and we'll add table funny in here, but it's not related to anything. It's kind of an orphan out there. We'll hide that table. Okay, now we'll close this off, and we want to save the changes to the layout of relationships. Okay, and so we made a table called funny. Now, if I want to, I can create an object called a form. All right. And that form is just simply an easy way for me to input data into a table. As I talked about in the lecture the other day, we went from site to site, and I said, look, you're basically filling out a form that goes into a table, okay? But what I cannot emphasize enough is that are the relationships between the tables. This is what makes a database so powerful. My ability to link several tables together. And again, let's talk about this real quickly. I'm going to click on that little line. If I get myself there. Earth domain. Edit relationship. Now, the parent table is customer. The parent table is the table customer. Okay. The child table is the table reservation. And we have a foreign key, a primary key, customer ID, that's embedded in the reservation table as what we call a foreign key. A foreign key is nothing more than a field that is a primary key in another table. Notice it says to enforce inferential integrity, which means that they all have to match up. And let's click on the join type, and there are three types of joins. This is what we call an inner join, and that is where we do a classic intersection. We have, remember about Venn diagrams. You got set A, set B, and then the intersection is where they match up. We have a second type of table, and this is called a left join, and that is where we get all of the records from, in this case, the table customer, and only those records from the table reservation where the fields are equal. So on everything in customer, and just those where they're equal in reservation. That's it. And then a right join, which is the third one, where I get everything out of the table reservation, and only those things that match in table customer. It just depends on what I'm after. Okay, but this is a pretty simple kind of warehouse approach, so we're okay there. If I wanted to, I could click Cascade Update Related Fields, Cascade Delete Related Records. So anytime I would make a change, say in Customer ID, this table would be updated. Okay. Notice that we tie in these two tables where type ID, okay, is over here in station request type. I'll click on this for a minute. We'll edit the relationship. And then we have station ID to station assign. Okay, and we're very sensitive to these two things, obviously. This tells us how long someone stayed with us, i.e. how much money we'll make. This tells us how satisfied or dissatisfied they might be if they did or did not get the type of RV park, the station that they wanted. Well, we'll close that off, and we'll start to look at some queries again. And let's start with the very first one here. And we call these queries. And we're gonna, and notice I'm gonna open this up, and you're gonna see if you right click here, I have three levels. One is the data sheet view. The other is the design view. We'll go to it. And the other is the SQL view. Okay. Now, the data sheet view, you see it over here up at the top left, or you could right click and see the different views, or click up here. I'm going to click up here in the far left, and I'm going to look in the design view. The design view is a drag and drop environment that lets us develop queries, etc., without having to write any programming, without having to write any SQL. But if we want to, we can see the underlying query that's implied here. And in this case, we've used a thing called an expression. And here's what I like to do is just simply I like to make a copy of this, put it into a notepad, And what we're doing here in this query is we're creating what we call an expression. Here's the expression, average stay length, colon. Then we use the average function. And then we put in parentheses checkout date, and we make sure we put checkout date in brackets and we spell it correctly, or we'll get a parameter error, minus check-in date. Same story there. And that's how we get the average stay. Okay. Now I'm going to diminish this down, and let's go down even deeper and look at the SQL. And you're going to see that the SQL is pretty simple. So I'm going to copy all of this here. And here's what this query says. I'm going to select the average check-in date minus checkout date as, this is what we call an alias, average stay length. So I'm going to create this new column based on the average from the table reservation. So I'm getting the data from the table reservation. And that's the underlying SQL. We'll go back up to the sheet view. There it is. It shows us the average number. The average stay of length is 10. Okay. So we've gotten that done. So this is information specification number 2. Now, the information specifications start over on page 153, and they are, and the verbiage, and then 4 questions there at the bottom of page 155. I'm in the Miller case book. That's the big green book. Now, prior to all of that, the Miller text, their pages 148 starts and gives us some background about the company. 149 starts to talk about storage specifications, and that moves us into pages 150 and 151, where we develop the 4 tables. And what they have here, for example, on table 1 on page 150 would be the customer table structure. You'll see the field name, the data type, field description, the field size, and comment. And those comments deal with, is it required or not? Then you see the same thing for the table, type table, its structure. Then the same thing for the station table, its structure. And then the same thing for the reservation table, its structure. Okay? And the bottom line is this. These would be specifications. You work them out, develop them. Okay, and then you would build an entity relationship diagram, which is really what we saw when we tapped on, we clicked on database tools and saw how the tables are related. Okay. Then they move us into a forms. I'm going to close this off. And let's look at this form customer. But before we do this, let's create a form. Remember, we did our table funny. So I'm going to click on it and then click create. And I'm going to come over here to the forms area, and I'm going to click form wizard. And I'm going to get all of the fields. Now I can toggle and get one field, all of them, a part of them. I'm going to get all of them. I'm going to click next. And I have my choice of the format for my form. And I'm going to use a columnar. And let's click next. And what title do you want for it? And I'm going to call it form, FRM funny. So I stay. True to my naming conventions. And I click finish. And there's my form. And as we talked about Monday, I can navigate down here, do open text search. Okay. I can go to a particular record. Okay. And I hadn't populated that table. So let's just do a question here. And the question is Dr. Harmon a database junkie? The correct answer is yes. That's from chapter, let's call it chapter 666. Correct answer is on page 666. Level of difficulty is 1. And then I can add a new record. I can save this, and then let's go up to table funny and see if it populated a record in there. And there's the record. Okay. Now, if I want to, I can do a query. I'm going to do query wizard, query design. I'm going to choose the table funny. I'm going to add that. And I'm going to get the field. I'm going to select the chapter and level of difficulty. I'll run that query and it's going to show me the chapter and the level of difficulty. I probably would want to come back here and go back down to design view and probably choose correct answer page. That's, yeah, there we go. And then we'll close it off. Now I'm not going to save this. You could save it and give it a name. But you see, there the authors are showing us how those tables are put together, and then they move over into page 152 and 153, talking about the two forms, the customer form and the reservation form. The customer form uses all of the fields from the customer table. Okay. And click on customer table and go to the design view. You'll see customer ID, the first name, the last name, the phone number, the city, the street, the zip code. And oh yeah, and they had added they added the state. Okay. Now I'm going to close this off, and I'm just going to click on the form customer again, and I'm going to come back over here to database tools. I'm going to click on object dependencies, and you'll see that this form, objects that I depend on, this form is drawn from the customer table. Is it possible that I would have a form where I'm pulling from more than one table? Absolutely. And let's close this off for a second. And we'll click on the form reservation. And let's look at the object dependencies for it. And you'll see here at the form reservation, it depends upon the customer table, the station table, and the type table. And again, the reservation form is what I use to populate the table reservation because that's a fact table. So here I'm collecting data about customers, okay? Here I'm collecting data about transactions with customers. Now, I want to talk for a moment about the idea of a query, because we did one of those. The really incredible, the power of a database is bound up in two things. First of all, the ability to put tables together and so draw a complex picture, a more complete picture of a transaction or a customer or both. As we talked about, I can embed one key into another table and make them, and as long as they match up, I've combined the two tables. Okay, and the other is the fact that when I run a query, I produce what we call a view. A view is just simply nothing more than code that's been executed. And then what gets saved is the code, not all of the new data. So we're not, we have a table, and it's like we have a table. Think of it like this. We have a table, we take a picture of it, and then we edit out what we don't want, and we keep what we want. Here's a daily checkout report. This is one of the information specifications that she wanted to know about. We'll open it up. This shows us, what their check-in date, their checkout date. Let's go down here into the design view, and we'll see that here we have. We're using the table customer. I'm going to move those around so it's clear. I always want to have the parent on the left, the child on the right, and notice they're bound together by customer ID. And we have them in ascending order. We could put them in descending order if we care to. They're in the sort. And then we have a thing called a criterion. And that's where we say, okay, the criterion is everything on the 1st of June. So could that be everything on the 6th of June? Yeah. 15th of June, whatever I'm after. Okay? And that's just simply a matter of changing this. So I'm going to come in here. Since I'm working with dates, I've used pound sign. I'm putting 6/15. I think it's 2008. And let's see what we get. And there are some check-ins and check-out dates. Check-in date's the 15th and the check-in and check-out date. Now I'm going to close this off. And I'm not going to save those changes. No need to. But you say now, Dr. Harmon, let's look at the SQL view on this. There it is. Can I save this? If I have code like this that works, all right, I'm going to save it. And I'm going to put this in for a moment just so you can see. Okay? I'm going to copy it. I'm going to put it into a notepad. Get rid of this stuff here. Here's what it says. I'm going to select from the table reservation, because the table is on the left side, dot the field customer ID. Then I'm going to get from the table customer, the customer's first name. Then from the table customer, their last name. Then I'm back to the reservation table and the station assigned, the reservation table, dot, checkout date, table reservation check-in date, okay, from table customer, and I'm doing an inner join on table on the customer ID. So I'm just basically saying, okay, I'm going to run an inner join, and I want to make sure that in this reservations, I'm pulling out of the customer table and the reservation table, okay, and I want to make sure that the customer ID matches up, okay. And then I have a couple of conditional statements where the table reservation check-in date equals June 1st, and then I'm order it by table reservation dot check-in date. And we'll go back up to the design view. it's highly unlikely that you'll be writing any kind of code. You're going to be more likely to write some VBA in Excel than doing any SQL or Oracle or anything like that. But you will be working in a graphic user environment, or what we call a graphic user interface, like this one, where I'm dragging and dropping tables and fields. You might even have some expressions. You may have to enter some expressions, although probably chances are you'll be able just to have those. You'll have some drop and drags to do that, to compute them. Okay, so we've looked at this table. Now and so we've answered the questions. The question, and this is that question, the daily check-in report. We know the average stay. We've already know that one. Then we come to the June revenue report. This is the monthly, and we're going to open that up, and this shows us during June who checked in, how long they stayed, and were they given a discount. This is ISP4, information specification number 4, and this is the bottom of page 155. It says, what is the RV park revenue for June 1st, 2008? Ms. Molosky wants the information organized by station type, which is done. The report should show the total discount that was given. And neither one of these got the discount, because if you look back in the case, if they were there more than 5 days, I think they get a 10% discount. And then if they were there more than 29 days, they got a 15% discount. Nobody here qualifies for the discount. Now, we're going to go down to the design view and we'll see what I'm talking about. And here's this first expression. And we get the checkout date, the length, that's checkout date minus check-in date. And then we're going to use a function from SQL called the IIF functions, which is basically a search function. And I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to put this over here. And this is a field. This is called an expression. And I'm using the IIF function. It's saying find anything where the length, okay, is greater than 29. And if that's the case, then take the daily rate times 0.15. Continue on. If you don't find that, check to see if the length is greater than 6. And if it is, then the daily rate times 0.1, which is a 10% discount. And if you don't find either one, it's a 0. So remember, if they stayed more than 5 days, they get a 10% discount. If they stay more than 29 days, they get a 15% discount. And those are the expressions. And just for grins, let's go down and take a look at the SQL. And it's not as complicated as it looks. I'll just copy it here, and then we'll put it into Notepad. When I write SQL, I always work the Notepad and then cut and paste in. Basically, we're selecting from the table station the station type. From the table station, we're getting the station assigned. From the table reservation, we're getting the check-in date. From the table reservation, we're getting the checkout date. And then we have from the table type, we're getting the daily rate. And then we have checkout date minus check-in date. As length, the as is what we call a column alias. We create a column. And then we start to do the search to see how many days. And then that we have another column alias as given discount. Then we do an inner join, And then we have another inner join. Then we have down here conditional statements or clauses. And you say, wow, wouldn't it be just easier to go up here and go up into the design view, get the fields you want, and then write the easiest thing to me would be to basically choose the station, choose the fields you want, then create any expressions that you need to in a pad, and then just cut and paste them in. Well, here's the result set for that information specification. Now we've got some other ones, and here's a month-long customer report, list report, and here are the customers. And this is want to know. Let's see, what was this? June number 4. How many were not assigned? Another question that we want. Oh yeah, she wanted a. Wanted to do a query to get a list of those who'd stayed, I think. Yeah, those who had stayed more than a month. How do I know that? Well, I can look at the stay length and I can see that. If I really want to verify that, I come down to the design view and I'll see where it says greater than 29. It's down here on the criteria. You say, could that be greater than 10? Yeah. Let's just do this for a minute. Let's put greater than, instead of 29, let's put 10 and look at the view. And there's everybody who stayed more than 10 days. Now, in this case, they only wanted 30, so we'll just change this back to greater than 30. Again, what gets saved in the machine is the code, not the data. The table data are there. The table doesn't get changed unless we decide to update, delete, or change the table. So we'll close that off. We'll close that one off. Here's those that were occupied in June. Let's open that up. And this is a report. This is the ISQ3. On June 12, 2008, how many stations are currently occupied? Well, let's look at this for just a moment because we've got the check-in date and the checkout date. And let's go down to the design view. You notice I work a lot there. And here, look at what I did on the criteria. I put anything that was equal to or less than the 12th of June. Okay, in terms of the check-in date. And then for the checkout date, I have anything greater. So use some Boolean logic here. The check-in date was anything less than or equal to the 12th of June. The checkout date is anything greater than, and notice I have these dates. SQL kind of gets crazy, especially in Microsoft Access with dates, so I use pound signs. Remember, these are dates. But the machine stores them like numbers, so that's how I can, do these operations like subtract checkout, minus check-in, or use these kinds of greater than or lesser than, or in this case, equal to or lesser than. Not a big deal. And if I was really interested, I've got the station assigned, okay, and I'm going to add the station assigned, and just for grins, I'm going to put the station request type over here, and let's look at this now. And this tells us everybody what types of stations were occupied. As of the 12th. of June. And I might want to add in, I have the reservation ID. So I might want to have the reservation ID and the customer ID. And now I've got a really nice report that tells me, well, who was it that stayed? Now I'm going to close this. Then we have now here we have a query that creates a reservation form, and I'm going to open this up. And you can see the reservation form. We created a form using a query. And I'm going to go down to the, we're in the design view, and you can see the reservation form. Now I'm going to close this off, and then I'm going to click down here in Form Reservation, and I'm going to click Object Dependencies, and I would say objects that I depend upon, table customer station type, and then the queries. I have a reservation form query. Not that big of a deal. Then here's the query RV station report. Here's the ISQ number 1, which is there on page 155. How many customers were not assigned to their requested station type? Now we addressed this earlier when we looked at we did Moose Extended, but let's look at this for just a minute. Now we're here in the design view, and I want to show you what we did. If I can get this to move down. Here we go. I want to show the table. And I know I've got them from the table reservation and the table customer. You say, how do you know? Because I can look at the tables that are used. So I've got table customer and table reservation. Now you say, now wait a minute. These two are not tied together, so how are you able to run a query on them? Okay, well, it's pretty simple. We do have matching fields. The customer ID field in the reservation table, okay, matches up. And remember, back when we looked in the entity relationship diagrams, we linked those two tables. They say, all right, how do you do that? So I'm going to close this query out, but let's take a look at it real quickly. Here for station request, I'm using like D, like R, like W, and I put an asterisk. So I put quotes, D, and then close the quotes. So anything that has a D, starts with a D, in the request is listed. And then I'll put station assigned, and I'll put not like D, not like R, not like W. So I'm checking to see if the request type matches the type that was assigned. And I do a wildcard search using the D and then the asterisk. And there's my results set up here. Okay? And how many were not assigned to their table. Okay, C. And I'm gonna click this here to suppress that first set of data. And we'll go back up here and take a look. And here's the station requests. Here's what the type that they wanted. Okay, and then I'll come back over here to the design view, and then I'll show up the table assign. We can see this lists every one of them where someone had a request type, and this is what they, so here they requested an RB type, but they got a Denali type. You can see all those listings. So there's a lot more than you had in that little spreadsheet, yeah, because there are a lot more, I believe there are a lot more records in here. No, there's the same number of records. Well, who knows what I did with that. Probably, yeah, that was that mismatch. But here we see we have all of these, the request type and what they were assigned. I will go back here. Station type, and then what they were assigned. Station request type. Now I'm going to go up here to table customer and take a look at this for a minute. Number 4, they were, well, let's see, reservation. Look that up. Number 4, they WW, and they got an R2. Okay. So those are the information specifications. And each of those at the bottom of page 155 have a question that they're trying to answer. Okay? Now finally we have the reports, the report objects. And let me say this, the report, as I've said before, the report building in Excel is a bear in Access. So I would probably take some of these result sets, do a print screen, okay, and throw them into a report. But we'll look at the reports there, and it's pretty simple to create them. And we're going to close everything here. Okay. If I want to create a report, I click Create. Then I can go to the Report Wizard, and if I want to do a report on the tab reservation, I can. But I'm going down here to the query to the check-in report. I'll click Next. It says you got to select fields, so I'm going to get them all. Next. Next. Now, if I do any grouping, I can do that. And I'm going to do grouping based on check-in date by month. I'm going to do it by day. That's a grouping option. I'll click Next. And I'm going to put the customer ID in ascending order. I'll click Next. Next. And I want to rename this Report Reservation. RPT. And we'll finish. And there we are. And you can see I'm going to have to do a little bit of work. I'm going to click up here on, and I'm going to go to the layout view. And as you can see, I've got a little bit of space I need to work with. So I'm going to move the customer ID over here. I'm going to take customer first name and pull it here a little bit. Same thing with the names. I'm going to pull them over. Customer last name, I'll pull it over a little bit. I'm just simply moving these fields, how they're configured. Station assigned, I'm going to move it over. And here's the checkout date. See, And I might click on home up here, and I'm going to try to, what I want to do is get this. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do the checkout date, and then I'll move these over. See, I've got some more, and I've got the date they checked out. I grouped it by check-in day. And in the report I can also go back up to the report view, or I can go down to the design view. And there you can see that's really for graphics designers who want to place it in a specific dot, a specific quadrant, etc. We'll just go to the report. There it is. I won't make any changes there. And we report of the station list. We can open that up. When they've added in, we'll go in here to the design view, and you'll see what they've done. They've put in some logos, and they've used the equal date, which is a function that says, okay, put in today's date. Then they have a page header. Then these are the details. Like I said, it's a little bit much, and I think it's better often just to take the data, throw them into something you can work with, like say Word. I think it's much easier. And that's pretty much it as far as how this table is put together. Okay, and we added some information, I think, in our reservation. We created a table. We created a form called Funny. And we'll just do a quick query. Let's do this, click Create. Query design. And we're going to add the table customer and the table reservation. And we'll close that off. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to get the customer ID, the reservation ID. Then we're going to get the state where they came from, and we're going to get the check-in date and the checkout date. Okay, and if we want, we can create an expression, and then we're going to get the station request type and the station assigned, and we're going to run this. Now, there's some more work that we can do using some expressions. For example, how long did they stay with us? Was there a mismatch between types of stations? And we're going to save this as QRYPHU query funny. Okay. So now you'll see it in there. There's your query funny. And like I said, if we want to, we can go back into the design view. And we're going to create an expression. So I'm going to go over here to the notepad. And I'm going to write an expression. It's called DAYSSTAYED : and then bracket, that'd be checkout date, bracket. Now, in front of this, I'm going to put a parenthesis, minus and so we've created that expression, and in the SQL it would show up as a column alias. And let's go back up here and take a look. This shows us the number of days stayed. And then we'll go back down here and we'll find out on the criteria under station request type. We'll put like, double quotes, and then asterisk D, close. And we'll check this first one to see and then we'll put in the criterion station request type and where I messed up was I didn't put in my wildcard. So I need double quotes. Okay, under the station request type, I put like, open quote, D, then asterisk, close the quotes. And so I've checked to see if people requested a Denali and didn't get it. So let's look at that. Okay, there's one. We'll come back to here, we'll do like. I'm down in the criteria line, the next criteria line. I'll put quotes, R, asterisk, close quotes, and then we'll put not like, R, asterisk. The asterisk's a wildcard, so it picks up anything that starts with an R. Now we'll take a look and we'll see how that's okay. So far, so good. And then we'll put like, quote, W, and we'll put the asterisk, and then we'll come down and put not like, W, and we'll get to see everybody who did not get the station requested, and we see the station assigned. And this tells us what they requested, what they did not get, and how many days they stayed. So we did a little bit of work with that query. And there we go. All right, we'll close this off. We'll save it. And we've run a query. Okay. Now, as I had said, we're going to have a couple of database cases, and this will pretty much wrap up the lab for this first database case, elusive moose, which was case 20 in the Miller book. And we'll take a look at the next case. I'm still kind of debating about which one I'm going to do. But I will let you know that. My hunch is that we will probably, and you can probably hear me going through here. We will probably do case number 17, although I'm not sure. I'll just have to take a look at it and I'll make a decision. But you'll want to look at this and see how we did this, play around with the database, and don't forget this database, Moose CIS Solution, the one, as well as Moose 4 Solution, that file, and we'll close this off. Okay, here are the three files: the Moose ISS Solution, Moose 4 Extended, and Moose. Those are the three files that you're going to upload for the 6th of July. Okay? And what I will do is, after I've saved this recording and then upload it to YouTube, I'll put an announcement over in the announcements. That seems like a logical place to do. And you can replay this to your heart's content. Okay? So I'm going to stop the sharing. I'm going to stop recording.